So Hare Krishna, we'd like to welcome everyone to this reading session. And we're going to read through this small book on the way to Krishna. I would suggest that you all have a pen or paper or some note with you. That along the way, if you have any questions, you may write them or note them down because at the end of the discussion, we can ask the questions on the group, on our WhatsApp group. So that will be better in case some parts are not covered. So it is a very nice small book by Srila Prabhupada on the way to Krishna. It is recommended for someone new to Krishna consciousness who want an easy read. There are 5 chapters as we see here. We're going to go through the first one, which is thorough way to happiness, the complete way, right, to get to happiness. So let us see. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So here it's mentioned, Prabhupada starts to say, every one of us is searching after happiness, but we do not know what real happiness is. We see so much advertised about happiness, but practically speaking, we see so few people happy. So few happy people. That's a fact in this world nowadays. Everything you see, every advertisement from clothes to food to housing, it's all about how to get happiness. But factually, there are very few people who are happy. Especially in the movies, we see that how movie stars and heroes and actresses and artists, they portray a false sense of happiness. But are they really happy? If you look at their personal lives, it's a shatter. So Prabhupada continues, this is because so few people know that the platform of real happiness is beyond temporary things. It is this real happiness that is described in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. So people are looking for happiness in temporary things. Nothing wrong in that in one sense. If you look for happiness in temporary things, you'll get temporary happiness. If you look for happiness in real things, you'll get real happiness. Simple as that. So then Prabhupada continues to say, happiness is generally perceived through our senses. He gives an example. A stone, for instance, has no sense and cannot perceive happiness and distress. Then he says, developed consciousness can perceive happiness and distress more intensely than undeveloped consciousness. So here they are actually various stage of consciousness or chetana, as they say in Sanskrit. The Yoga Sutras mention 5 different stages of chetana. The first is called Avritta Chetana. Avritta Chetana means completely covered. It is not at all, it is completely concealed Chetana, consciousness. So this is given the examples of stones, trees, plants, where they look as if they're dead, but their consciousness is completely covered. One step ahead is what is called as Sankuchita Chetana, where the Chetana is actually closed. It's not covered. It is not covered. It is actually closed. Okay. So closed are like insects or fish. They show some signs of consciousness, some signs of intelligence, but very dull, very easily cheated. They seem to be very robotic, right? Insects and fishes. And a little higher than that, third level, we have Mukulita Chetasana. Mukulita means budding. Okay. So these are compared to animals and birds. They have a little better sense of consciousness. Still, they have some foolishness also. And then the 4th level is what is known as Vikasita Chetana. Vikasita means expanded consciousness. So these are humans where we can actually think, reason, analyze. And the highest stage is called Purna Vikashita Chetana. That is when one's consciousness is fully expanded, fully opened. That is a self-realized person. When a person understands what is actually right, what is actually wrong clearly. So Prabhupada continues to say, trees have consciousness, but it's not developed, right? We call it Avritta Chetana. Trees may stand for a long time in all kinds of weather, but they have no way of perceiving miseries. They don't understand when someone is cutting the tree, they're feeling distress. Or when someone is plucking the fruits and flowers, they're feeling distress. They have no idea of it. If a human being, Prabhupada says, were asked to stand like a tree for only 3 days or even less, he would not be able to tolerate it. Why? Because we are Vikasita Chetana. The conclusion is that every living being feels happiness or distress according to the degree of development of consciousness. This is a very important line that we have to understand. Happiness and distress is very relative in this world. It is all according to the degree of our consciousness. So what may be happiness for one person may be distress for another living being. Okay. For example, if we see ants or insects, we become distressed. But the frog, which sees the ants and insects, it becomes very happy. It's a source of food. For us, a source of disturbance. Because our consciousness is more open. We realize that, no one's going to eat ants and insects. Prabhupada continues, the happiness that we are experiencing in this material world is not real happiness. If one asks a tree, are you feeling happy? The tree, if it could, might say, yes, I am happy standing here all year. I am enjoying the wind and the snowfall very much, etc. This may be enjoyed by the tree, but not for the human being. It is a very low standard of enjoyment. Again, we mentioned, right? Enjoyment and distress is relative. There are different kinds of grades of living entities, and their conceptions and perceptions of happiness are also all of different types and grades. Although one animal may see the another animal is being slaughtered, he will go right on chewing grass, for he has no knowledge to understand that he may be next. This is a very common example Prabhupada gives of a goat. When the goat is tied up with the butcher, and the butcher is pulling the next goat and slaughtering it, and the other goats are seeing the goat before it got slaughtered, the goat before it got slaughtered, my number is next. But then he says, oh, green grass. And he's busy eating the green grass. Now, if you put humans in one line like that, you see the first human getting slaughtered, second. The human, even if he sees food, if you give it the best of foods, he cannot eat. He's so disturbed. Why? Consciousness is expanded. He knows that death is coming. But for an animal, consciousness is so closed, cannot perceive that death is going to come, unable to understand. Prabhupada continues, this animal, this goat, is thinking that he is happy. But at the next moment, he may be slaughtered. In this way, there are different degrees of happiness. So Prabhupada is drawing the point, there are different shades according to their consciousness. Yet of all of them, what is the highest happiness? Krishna tells to Arjuna. So this is the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 21st verse. Sukham atyantikam yattat. Atyantik means extreme. Sukham, extreme, topmost sukham. Sukham atyantikam yattat buddhi grayam atindriyam. That which even with your intelligence is beyond. Ati indriyam is beyond the senses. That is the sukham atyantikam. So if one wants highest ultimate pleasure, ultimate happiness, it is beyond the grasp of intelligence. It is beyond the perception of the senses. Veti yatra na chaivayam stitas chalati tatvata. And one is fixed in truth, the reality of this world. That is where real happiness is. Prabhupada says, buddhi means intelligence. One has to be intelligent if he wants to enjoy. Nice point, huh? One has to be intelligent if he wants to enjoy. Animals do not have really developed intelligence and so cannot enjoy life as a human being can. So here, humans nowadays, we want to enjoy life. So we invent AIs, we invent robots, smartphones, just to get our work done easier, faster. So we're using our intelligence trying to be happy. The hands, the nose, the eyes, the other sense organs, and all the bodily parts may be present on a dead man, but he cannot enjoy. The Prabhupada goes a step further. Why not? See, he told earlier that we are enjoying through our senses. But further than that, the senses also belong to someone. The enjoying energy, the spiritual spark has left, and therefore the body has no power. If one looks further into the matter with a little intelligence, he can understand that it was not the body that was enjoying at all, but a small spark that was within, right? So we are enjoying through our senses, but ultimately the senses are not enjoying. They are like windows. So all the Navadwaram, it is mentioned, the 9 holes of the body, the 5, what is this? Jnana Indriyas, 5 Karma Indriyas, all these things, the knowledge gaining senses and the active senses, these are all just gateways by which we are getting experiences. They do not enjoy themselves, right? If the nose touches a fragrance, it's not that the nose is enjoying, it's a gateway by which the mind perceives enjoyment. Ultimately, the soul is the one that's active. So although one may think that he is enjoying the bodily sense organs, the real enjoyer is the spiritual spark. Because between the difference between a living person and a dead person, living person has nose, mouth, ears, eyes. Same with a dead person also. So if I put a nice, creamy bun or something, creamy food, nice donut, to the nose, to your nose, you'll be like, wow. And to the nose of a dead man, the nose is the nose. Why you say the nose is not enjoying? Because the real enjoy is the soul. That spark always has the potency of enjoyment, but it is not always manifest due to being covered by the material tabernacle. Okay, that means being covered by this material body, like we discussed, 5 stages of consciousness. Although we may not be aware of it, it is not possible for the body to experience enjoyment without the presence of the spiritual spark. If dead man is offered the body of a beautiful woman, will he accept it? No, because the spiritual spark has moved out the body. Not only was it enjoying within the body, Prabhupada says, but the soul is also maintaining the body. When the spark leaves, the body simply deteriorates. So here Prabhupada is diverting our attention to, there is nothing wrong with happiness, but if you go after temporary happiness, you're going to get temporary results. Look beyond. Who is actually the enjoyer? It is not the senses. It is actually the person sitting inside perceiving the senses. So why don't go for Sukham Atyantikam, the highest? It follows that if the spirit is enjoying, it also must have senses. Otherwise, how can it enjoy? So here's a nice point that Prabhupada is saying, that we are enjoying through this dwaram, through these different holes. How is the spirit soul enjoying? It must also have some kind of senses, but spiritual. The Vedas confirm that the spirit soul, although atomic in size, is the actual enjoying agent. So Shastra say, Anando Mayo Abhyasat, that the living being is ultimately always looking for happiness. It is not possible to measure the soul, but that is not to say that it's without measurement. So many people say the soul is so so small that you cannot measure it. But just because you cannot measure it does not mean that it does not have a dimension or it does not exist. It's on a different dimension. So Prabhupada gives an example. He says, an object may seem to be no bigger than a point and may seem to have no length or width. Okay, in science we study, what is a point? A point is that which has no length and width. You know, point, line, box, circle, we study like that. Point, what's the definition of a point? No length, no breadth. That's what science says, isn't it? But here Prabhupada says, but when we perceive it under a microscope, this point, we still can see that it has both length and width. Okay, but we assume point means no length and width for our scientific calculations. Similarly, the soul also has dimensions, but we cannot perceive them. That means we see the soul so small, we think that it does not exist, doesn't have a form. But if you zoom in, you can actually see that it's so small, but still it has a form. He gives another example, Prabhupada. When we buy a suit or a dress, it is made in the shape of the body, made to fit the body. Cloth being made to fit the body. The spiritual spark must have a form. Otherwise, how is it that the material body is going to accommodate it? You buy some cloth according to the shape of the body. How did this body get a shape then? This body is a cloth of meat, like a meat cloth, you know, an organic cloth. How did this organic cloth get a shape? That means it must be based on the spirit soul shape. It has a shape, that's why we have a shape. The conclusion is that the spiritual spark is not impersonal. It is an actual person. The Atma, the Jivatma is an actual person. God is an actual person, and the spiritual spark, being a fragmental part of him, is also a person. He gives another example. If the Father has a personality and individuality, the Son also has them. And if the Son has them, we conclude the Father has them. So how can we, sons of God, assert our personality and individuality? That means we say that I have a personality, I have an individuality, and at the same time deny them to our Father, the Supreme Lord. So many times people say that this is my individual nature, this is who I am. But when they say that God, oh no, God doesn't have a nature, God doesn't have a form. So that means we have a form, we have a nature, we have different moods. But Lord doesn't have all this. He must have this. If we have to some degree, he must have it in a complete degree. This is logic. To say that we have something that God doesn't have, is that even possible? God means he must have everything. How can we have something which God doesn't have? That means we are better than God. That's not possible. Then Prabhupada goes back to the discussion. Atindriyam means we have to transcend these material senses before we can appreciate real happiness. Ati Indriyam, go beyond the senses. Because our senses are temporary, the enjoyment we are getting is only temporary. If we want eternal happiness, we have to go beyond enjoyment, which is beyond the senses. Ramante yogino anante satyananda chit atmani. So the yogino, the yogina, the yogis who are aspiring after spiritual life are also tasting enjoyment. Ramante, they're enjoying by focusing on the super soul within. So it's not to say that bhakti life or spiritual life is a dry life. No. Even the transcendentalists, the spiritualists, they are experiencing or they are feeling some kind of happiness. If there is no pleasure, there is no enjoyment. Then what is the point of going to so much trouble to control the senses? It's a very logical point. In spiritual life, we are told to regulate our senses, control our senses, so and so. But why do so much tapasya unless you're going to get so much of happiness? So there is enjoyment, there is pleasure. That's why a person is willing to go through, all kinds of difficulties in life. But what kind of pleasure are the yogis relishing if they are taking so much trouble? The yogis do so much tapasya and meditation. They are getting some pleasure. But what kind of pleasure they are getting? This pleasure is ananta. That pleasure is ananta, endless. Ananta. There is no anta. There is no ending. Ramante yogino anante satyananda chit atmani. They're enjoying that which is real. Satya, ananda, chit. How is this? Prabhupada asked. The spirit soul is eternal. The Supreme Lord is eternal. Therefore, reciprocation of their loving exchange is eternal. One who is actually intelligent will refrain from the flickering sensual enjoyment of this material body and fix his enjoyment in spiritual life. His participation in spiritual life with the Supreme Lord is called Rasa Leela. Very interesting. Prabhupada is saying that we are eternal, the Lord is eternal. And when we enjoy with the Lord, that's an eternal enjoyment. But if my senses are temporary, if I try to enjoy my body, enjoy my senses, it's going to be temporary only. So this eternal enjoyment with the Lord is called Rasa Leela. Leela means play. Rasa or rasa means taste or enjoyment. It is that kind of play or enjoyment which gives you so much relish. But now Prabhupada wants to clarify to those who have heard something else about Ras Leela. He says, we have often heard of Krishna's Ras Leela with the cowherd girls in Vrindavan. That is not like ordinary exchanges that takes place between these material bodies. Rather, it is an exchange of feelings to spiritual bodies. One has to be somewhat intelligent to understand this. For a foolish man who cannot understand what real happiness is, seeks happiness in the material world. So this Ras Leela, what is discussing here, is not some perverted thing. Ras Leela is actually a dance where Krishna as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old boy is dancing with all his devotees. And in that, it's just pure, non-exploitative, no hetu, no grudges, no ulterior motives, pure wanting to please Krishna, and in that experiencing happiness themselves. That is the kind of dance. That's why it said it's the feelings of love, right? Exchanged to spiritual bodies, not material bodies. In this material world, we see Ras Leela. Someone may think Ras Leela is some kind of perverted sensual enjoyment. But the sensual enjoyment in spiritual life is very low. Sensual enjoyment in spiritual world is something very, very low level because it's to do with this material body. They are enjoying on the platform of the soul. Prabhupada continues to explain. In India, there's a story of a man who did not know what sugarcane was. And when was told that it was very sweet to chew, he was like, oh, what does it look like? He asked. And people said, it looks like bamboo. So the foolish man began to chew all kinds of bamboo rods, right? How can he begin to experience the sweetness of sugarcane? Similarly, we are trying to get happiness and pleasure, but we are trying for them by chewing this material body. Therefore, there is no happiness and pleasure. So we see something like sugarcane, like what we see as Ras Leela, and we think that, oh, this is the way. And we start chewing things in this material body, which is like bamboo. So we will not taste the sweetness, but we will break our teeth, isn't it? By chewing bamboo. So similarly, right, that we should first understand what the nature of that transcendence is before we can enjoy it. Prabhupada continues to say, for the time being, there may be some little feeling of pleasure, but that is not actual pleasure. It is temporary. Okay, so we don't deny, even in sense enjoyment, there is some pleasure, but it's temporary. Prabhupada says it's like a show of lightning, which we may see flashing in the sky that may momentarily seem like lightning. The real lightning is beyond that. And sometimes during the rainy season, when it rains, we see in the sky suddenly lightning comes, no sound is there. But that's it, one time. After that, it doesn't rain only. So that's like a show of lightning. Because a person does not really know what happiness is, he deviates from real happiness. So the danger is that the Jivatma, because he has no idea or no information where to get real happiness, the soul, he starts to deviate from real happiness and start trying to enjoy this material body. The process of establishing oneself in real happiness is this process of Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, we can gradually develop our real intelligence and naturally enjoy relishing spiritual happiness as we make spiritual progress. Okay, as we begin to relish spiritual happiness, we proportionally abandon material happiness. So this is a very important line. It is inversely proportional. The more we are enjoying spirit, the more we are enjoying bhakti or Krishna consciousness, naturally temporary things go down, the temporary enjoyment. So the more we are focused on real enjoyment, the illusionary temporary enjoyment goes down. As we make progress in understanding the absolute truth, we naturally become detached from this false happiness. If somehow or other one is promoted to the stage of Krishna consciousness, what is the result? Let's say one becomes actually fully Krishna conscious. Then how does one feel? How does one react? He quotes this next verse. Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tata yasmin stito na dukkhena guruna pi vichalyate. Yam labdva cha aparam labham. When he gets to this stage of Krishna consciousness, he feels that there is nothing else to give. Manyate na adikam tata. There's nothing adhika. There's nothing better than this. They feel like that. Yasmin stito na dukkhena. In that situation, they don't feel dukkam. Guru napi vichalyate. Even the worst problems come in life, vichalyate. They never flicker. Vichalit. They never flicker. So this is the stage of Krishna consciousness when one enjoys spiritual transcendence. Even the biggest problem comes in life, Guru napi, but still one does not waver. When one attains the stage, when one attains that stage, other achievements appear insignificant. In this material world, we are trying to achieve so many things. People are trying for riches, women, fame, beauty, knowledge, etc. But as soon as we are situated in Krishna consciousness, we think, oh, no achievement is better than this. One naturally feels, what is the point of big, getting so much material stuff, so much material thing? What's the point of all this? Krishna consciousness is so potent that a little taste can save one from the greatest danger. So our Krishna conscious practice is, we are all as sadhakas, we are trying to gain or get taste in bhakti, knowing that if we get some taste in the practice of bhakti, that can save us from the greatest danger of material life all over again. So we try to get taste in prasadam, we try to get taste in chanting, we try to get taste in hearing shastras. So we must endeavor to get some taste. As one begins to relish the taste of Krishna consciousness and all the limbs of bhakti, he begins to see other so-called enjoyments and attainments as flat and tasteless. One starts to feel naturally that all other things are a little pointless, because it is temporary. And if one is situated firmly in Krishna conscious, the greatest danger cannot disturb him. There's so many dangers in life because the material world is a place of danger. There's a shloka which comes in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58th verse. Padam padam yat vipadam na tesham. That padam, every step, there is a vipadam, there is a danger at every step. Material world is a very dangerous place. We tend to close our eyes to this, Prabhupada says. And because we are foolish, we try to adjust to these dangers. Isn't it? Corona came and gone. Somehow or other, people are still, doing all the kinds of nonsense which caused the outbreak in the first place. So we're closing our eyes, we're just trying to adjust things. He said, okay, I survived the last round. Let me try again. Maybe next round will not come. We may have many dangerous moments in our life, but if we are training ourselves in Krishna consciousness and preparing ourselves to go back home, back to Godhead, we will not care for them. So many people become very scared when they see the dangers in life. Death is coming, issues are coming, health crisis, this, that. But if a person is trained in Krishna consciousness, they do not feel it as a disturbance. Our attitude will be, Dangers may come and go, so let them happen. I don't care because I'm fixed in my Krishna consciousness. It is very difficult to make this kind of adjustment as long as one is on the materialistic platform. A nice point. We cannot have this consciousness of, let it happen until and unless we come off the material platform. Because the material platform means we identify with the body. So we are very afraid that nothing should happen to this body. But the body is composed of perishable elements, Prabhupada says. But the more one advances in Krishna consciousness, the more he becomes free from bodily designations and this material entanglement. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the material world is compared to a great ocean. This is the same shloka, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58th verse. Samasrita ye pada pallava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murari, mentioned like that. Within this material world, between this material universe, there are millions and billions of planets floating in space. We can just imagine how many Atlantic and Pacific oceans are there. In fact, whole material universe is likened to a great ocean of misery, an ocean of birth and death. In order to cross this great ocean of nescience or ignorance, a strong boat is needed. That boat is the lotus feet of Krishna. So this shloka is saying that, Mahatpadam, Murari. We should immediately get aboard that boat. We should not hesitate thinking that, oh, Krishna's feet is very small. Some people are like that, no? He's saying like so many devotees are worshipping Krishna. How many people will Krishna save? Let them go first. I will come later. They think like that. Now I'm going to give Krishna some break. But one should not think that Krishna's feet are very small. Krishna's feet can encompass the whole universe. The whole universe is simply resting on his leg, Prabhupada says. For one who takes shelter of his feet, it is said that the material universe is no more significant than a puddle of water found in the impression of a calf's footprint. The same verse is mentioning here. Bhavam budhir vatsa padam param padam. The Bhavam Buddhi Vatsa Padam. The whole entire material ocean becomes like a Vatsa Padam, the print of a calf. Very small. There is certainly no difficulty in crossing over such a small puddle. The next verse Prabhupada mentions. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samgitam. This indeed is actual freedom from all material miseries as arising from material contact. We are entangled in this material world due to uncontrolled senses. The yoga process is meant to control the senses. Nice point. We are entangled in this material world due to uncontrolled senses. The yoga process, bhakti yoga, is meant to control the senses. If somehow we can manage to control the senses, we can turn our face to actual spiritual happiness and make our life successful. So the very beginning of bhakti, real bhakti, is we'll try to practice some sense control. Chanting 16 rounds, trying to follow 4 negative principles, all this will help us actually to come out of the material contamination. So he quotes these 3 verses in series. Sa nischayena yoktavyo yoga nirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvana sheshatah manasyevendriyagramam vinimyamya samantatah shanai shanai ruparamet buddhya dhritti grihitaya atma samstam manah kritva na kinchit api chintayet yato yato nischalati manaschanchalamasstiram tatastato niyam yaitat atmaneva vasham nayet. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith and should not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it back and bring it under the control of the self. So this is very practical we experience when we are chanting, especially in the morning, Hare Krishna. So while chanting, the mind is running everywhere, but no, we have a conviction. This is good, this is important. The more I chant, the more I build up my spiritual muscles. And so we pull back the mind. No, let me focus. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pull back the mind. Prabhupada says, the mind is always disturbed. It is going sometimes this way, it is sometimes that. By yoga practice, we literally drag the mind to Krishna consciousness. The mind strays from Krishna consciousness to so many exterior objects because from the time immemorial, life after life, that has been our practice. So life after life, time immemorial, we have just been, our mind is so fickle. We're jumping from one work to another, one object to another. So therefore, today when we sit and chant, it's so difficult to bring back the mind. But ultimately, we should now train the mind to bring it back to Krishna. Due to this, there may be great difficulty in the beginning when one tries to fix his mind in Krishna consciousness. But these difficulties can all be overcome. So one need not worry. It is because the mind is agitated and not fixed on Krishna that it goes from one thought to another. For instance, when we are engaged in work, memories or events that happened 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago may suddenly come to our mind for no apparent reason. This is a reality. Even if we are doing Krishna Seva, suddenly when we see something, like you see a red pail, a red bucket, and suddenly you start remembering, oh, 10 years ago, I had a red bucket, someone stole it. I wonder if this is the same red bucket. One starts thinking. These thoughts come from our subconscious, and because they are always rising, the mind is always agitated. So when we're sitting down here, suddenly we're remembering that, doing this, thinking that, we become agitated. If we agitate a lake or a pond, Prabhupada is giving an example. If we agitate a lake or a pond, all the mud from the bottom of the surface comes to the surface. All the mud from the bottom comes to the surface. The water becomes muddy. Similarly, when the mind is agitated, so many thoughts arise from the subconscious. Same thing. So because of years and years of moving in this material world, so many nonsense things have now settled. But again, when we agitate the mind by seeing something or doing something or hearing something, again, all the dirty things come up again. If we do not disturb a pond, the mud will settle to the bottom. This yoga process is the means to quiet the mind. So this bhakti yoga process, meditation process is a means to quiet the mind and allow all these thoughts to settle. Sometimes we tell people, Shantama, keep relax, Shanti, relax. Okay, while chanting, just focus on the sound. Don't think of any other thing. Slowly, slowly, those bad thoughts and characters, they'll sink to the subconscious. For this reason, there are many rules and regulations to follow in order to keep the mind from becoming agitated. If we follow the rules and regulations, gradually the mind will come under control. There are so many don'ts and so many do's. And if one is serious about training the mind, he has to follow them. So ultimately, it's our choice. We cannot keep crying and complaining that, oh, my mind is so disturbed, I'm not happy, why am I not happy? One has to practice it. To practice it, one has to be trained. One has to accept training. If he acts whimsically, what is the possibility of the mind being controlled? When the mind is finally trained to the point where it will think of nothing but Krishna, it will attain peace and become very tranquil. The Prabhupada quotes, Prashanta manasam yenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhuta akalmasam. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the modes of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions of past deeds. He is freed from his karma because he is working under Krishna. Okay, next paragraph. The mind is always concocting objects for happiness. I'm always thinking, this will make me happy, or that will make me happy. Happiness is here, happiness is there, isn't it? Many people, they want to change their country. They're saying that this country is no longer good. Let me change to another country. Oh, that job is no longer good. Let me change to another job. Change, change, change. We're just cheating the mind because still unhappiness is there if we are only investing in material objects. In this way, the mind is taking us anywhere and everywhere. It is as though we are riding on a chariot behind an unbridled horse. This is a very famous analogy, very famous example that Prabhupada always gives. Just want to show you the photo. So if you see this photo here, right, all the horses are compared to different senses. You got the eyes, you got the nose, you got the ears, you got the hands, you got the tongue, and all these wild horses are running in all directions. There is the reins, which is the mind. the driver, which is like the intelligence, and the neutral witness, we, the soul, seated on the body, the chariot. Right? How disturbing it is. Prabhupada continues to say, we have no power over where we are going, but can only sit in horror and watch helplessly. Right? Like everything is getting pulled in all directions. Another example, if you see this photo, right? The person is sitting on the sofa, he has envy and anarthas in his heart, right? The TV is pulling his eye, the radio is pulling his ears, some food item is pulling his tongue. In this way, he's dragged in all directions, right? It's very suffering. But as soon as the mind is engaged in the process of Krishna consciousness, specifically by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then the wild horses of the mind will gradually come under control. Okay. Now, some people ask, how long does it take to control the mind? It depends on how wild your horse is. Right. We must engage in Krishna's service every moment of our lives in order to keep the restless and turbulent mind from dragging us from one object to another in the vain search for happiness, that means the useless search for happiness in the temporary material world. Already we know that all material things in this material world cannot give us ultimate happiness. But again, the mind and the senses say, no, try, maybe this way, maybe that way. Then Prabhupada continues, Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmasa sukena brahma samparsham atyantam sukam ashnute. Okay, so the yogi who is always situated in Krishna consciousness or Krishna bhakti practice becomes vigata kalmasa, becomes free from all kinds of contamination or dirt. Sukena brahma samparsham, he gets the highest stage. Atyantam sukam ashnute, he gets the real happiness. So last paragraph, Prabhupada writes, Krishna serves as a patron for one who is devoted to him. Patron means what? Someone who's always sponsoring you, someone who's looking after you, someone who's caring for you. So Prabhupada says Krishna is a patron for one who is devoted to him. When one is in difficulty, his patron saves him. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is the real friend of every living entity, and we have to revive our friendship with him. The method of reviving this friendship is the process of Krishna consciousness. By practice of Krishna consciousness, mundane, passionate hankering will come to a stop. So without Krishna consciousness, the mind is like a small child. You know, if you carry a child for shopping, he looks at one color, Mummy, I want this thing. Then he looks at something sweet, Mummy, I want that thing. Give me this thing, give me that thing. Right? It just keeps asking for foolish and things. And we know that we're not going to be satisfied by it because it's a lot of passion. This passionate hankering keeps us divorced from Krishna, keeps us away from Krishna, the real goal. Just like a mother is taking the son to the doctor or taking the son to somewhere, to the music class or something, and the child is looking, I want this, I want that. When they will reach to the destination. Krishna is within us and is waiting for us to turn to him. Okay, so Krishna is in the heart as Paramatma. He's waiting for us when we will turn to him. But we are too busy passionately eating the fruits of the tree of material desire. Another example, two birds are situated on a tree. One bird is so busy eating the fruits, forgot to think about Krishna. So in our life also, we are so busy, so passionate with our work, our career, making money, trying to be this, trying to do that we are not even taking time out to understand Krishna, understand ourselves better. This passionate compulsion to enjoy these fruits must stop. And we must situate ourselves in our real identity as Brahman, pure spirit. So from this chapter, we can understand that we are not against happiness, but we are very, how you say, utopian in our thought. We want the best, Parama, Ananda, Parama Sukham. We want the greatest, the higher, best way, thorough happiness. Don't shortchange me with little happiness. Give me thorough happiness. So that thorough happiness is only available in Krishna Bhakti. And to the degree that we look for happiness in temporary things, the happiness will also be temporary. So we realize that beyond this temporary body is the eternal self. If the eternal self finds eternal happiness in the eternal master, then he will always eternally be blissful. Right? So what we have to do, we have to take our process more seriously. The mind will scream, the mind will shout, look for happiness here, this will make you better, this Android phone, that iPhone, this vehicle, that vehicle, this is better. If I get more, I'll be happier. If I visited another country, I'll be happier. If I get more money, I'll be happier. No, everything is temporary because you're dealing with your senses. So much time, so much energy, so much effort you're investing. Why don't put some time, energy, and effort in trying to understand the real deal, the thorough way of happiness, right? Spiritual life. So if we put some time, effort, and energy in investing in trying to understand real happiness, then we can really be happy. So Hare Krishna, this is the first chapter. The next session that we're going to have on Monday, we will actually try to read the second chapter. In this ways, maybe in about 5 or 6 sittings or 7 sittings, we may be able to complete this book and move on to the next book. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.